like to introduce David Cohen, Chief Media Officer at David's role as Chief Media Officer, he leads North America's media management practice, overseeing all the planning and buying functions, and his team oversees portfolio management, integrated investment, decision sciences, and digital innovation. And he's a great thought leader and leads innovation throughout all of
Thank you. That's quite an auspicious bio. Thanks for coming here. I think we're going to have a good conversation. The timing is also quite interesting as we head into the television upfront, the new fronts next week, the television upfronts in 3 weeks. I don't know about you, but I assume since you've chosen to be in this room, video is on a lot of folks' minds and has been for quite some time. What I hope to, oh, there was a big spill of soda, sorry about that. We're gonna clean that up, or some coffee. What I hope that we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the things that are driving our desire for this term called video fluidity, and some of the things that are inhibiting us to move money in a frictionless way from channel to channel or from platform to platform. My legacy or history has been primarily on the digital side. For about 15 or 16 years I was in digital, and then got back into the quote-unquote traditional, I know everyone hates that moniker, world about a year ago. So looking after all of our planning and buying across channels. I'm going to do a quick job introducing our panelists, and then we prepared some questions. It's a nice, small, intimate group, so I do not want to have this as a lecture and wait to the last 5 minutes for questions. So as things come up, please interject and interact. I'm hoping that we can get some things accomplished. I don't think we're going to solve the world's problems, but we can potentially get us one step closer to our desired state. Cool. All right, so next to me is Toby, and you guys will have to forgive me, I've condensed these down to the salient points. So this was a little novella as I read them. But so Toby has been in digital advertising since 2000. He worked at Freestyle Interactive, which was acquired by Kara. Has worked at X+1 and Tribal Fusion. And at Tribal Fusion, he got the video bug and saw that it was on the cusp of mainstream popularity, and that was a catalyst for his move to Adapt TV. So Toby, we've been doing some good work with our agency and Adapt TV, so thank you for joining, and I think you'll add a great deal to the panel. Randy Kilgore is next to Toby. Randy oversees Tremor Video's North American advertising sales efforts, responsible for advertising strategy and category development. And Randy was just elected the chair of the IAB, so congratulations, Randy. That's a cross for someone to wear. All right, Randy, and then we have Barry Lowenthal from the Media Kitchen. He is the president of Media Kitchen, which is a KBS Plus agency. He oversees KBS Business Intelligence and KBS Atlanta. Has been in the advertising business for quite some time, NW Air, Backer Spiegel, and Gray. Let's start with word association. We'll go down the line, and maybe that will get some of our collective juices flowing. So, the first thing I'm going to say is television upfronts. What is the first thing that comes to your mind? We'll just do a quick one. I'll throw out a couple. We'll start at the end. Dan?
Needed way to quickly monetize.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
First thing that came to mind was new fronts.
My kids are 16 and 19, by the way, and their word association would be F off. I don't know why I had to share that, but I did.
I'll be there in about 6 years, so that's fine.
I'm just foreshadowing it for you.
Yeah.
Gold Rush.
I would say merchandising.
I would say prehistoric is what I would say. Let's do a couple more. So when I say YouTube, what comes to mind?
Cute.
Video.
Monetization geniuses.
I would say UGC.
I would say squirrels on skateboards. I'll do two more. C7. Does everyone know C7? Is everyone familiar with that term? No. So the way that television is purchased today, Nielsen, if anyone's heard of Big Bad Nielsen, they are the currency with which television is purchased. And a couple of years ago, the industry moved from live television ratings to this idea of an average of live plus DVR recorded playback. And we do that over a period of 3 days. So C3 is the currency that we currently are, by and large, conducting commerce on television with. And there's been a discussion around moving to a C7 metric. So not only counting 3 days of playback, but including 7 days of playback. I've even heard of C21, C28, kind of a little bit of a joke in my opinion, but so we won't do C7 since people didn't know what that was. I will say dynamic ad insertion.
Needed to replace C7.
Bring it on.
Yeah, I don't even know. Good luck. How about that?
Are you talking about the television or just in general?
In general.
I'm doing
I think future.
Okay, and the last one, because this is clearly getting old, programmatic, which I think is, in my view, one of the, we always come up with a flavor of the month or a flavor of the year. Programmatic has been that flavor for, I think, us for about a year. So programmatic, whoever wants to take it.
Override.
Love it.
Problematic.
Bob's not. Wow. Given that I work at a programmatic company, I'm going to disagree with your answer. I think it's much needed.
Okay. I think that you would have to have your head in the sand to think that this industry is not undergoing a tremendous transformation currently. Agencies and marketers and folks on the sell side are going through this great pressure to produce results for either investors, VCs, or the street. And by and large, marketers are not paying the amount of money required to deliver those kinds of results. So, in order to do that, you need to be far more efficient at how you go to the market. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The world is not getting simpler. The world is getting far more complicated. So we didn't know how good we had it back in the days of 468 by 60 banners, right? Where you only had to buy display advertising on a couple of websites and you were cutting edge, you were new media. Now it's a lot more complicated. So programmatic is one of the areas that gets us technology, data, and inventory, hopefully better results with fewer resources. So we're very, very encouraged by programmatic. All right, so let's start with question number one. And if I had to think about the one thing that is holding back video fluidity in the marketplace, it is measurement and lack thereof. So when we think about, as I talk to cable networks or broadcast networks, they always tell me that they are missing out on capturing audiences that are going off to other platforms, right? So if you're watching on a tablet, on your smartphone, somewhere else, we don't have the tools in the industry to be able to re-aggregate those audiences as we do in television. So I'd love to open that up to our panelists and think, and let's talk about it. Is measurement our number one problem, and how do we solve it? And whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, as the TV guy, I'll say yes. I mean, we can say that Nielsen is antiquated, that it doesn't know exactly what their answers are to start with, but the fact that we don't have a way to measure across all of these platforms as views are seen is incredibly difficult. And so, and we were talking about for the panel, when that's not there, the money doesn't tend to go to those other platforms as quickly as it might. We are seeing incredible consumption on these platforms, both on tablet and on phone. And for us not to really be able to monetize it fully, is difficult because the consumption is there. And we can all have conversations about Netflix and all these other competitors in the marketplace. I'm not so concerned about them as much as I am making sure that we can get the content that is being used monetized.
Yep.
You know, I should be able to tell my clients exactly how much reach they've gotten across all of their, across the entire campaign, all digital channels. I should be able to do that, and I can't. It's not that easy to do that. I've been seeing a lot of discussion about this in the press, and I worry that we're trying to apply to, when we try to solve that problem, we're trying to apply a TV metric to a digital opportunity. And partly I think we do that because more money is being spent in television, and so TV has just more weight in the marketplace, and so we're trying to sort of solve for that first. And I worry that we're trying to apply exposure-based metrics to something that is beyond that. And I think the digital world is beyond exposure-based metrics. And I would love to try to see us figure that out before we just all sort of like lay down and say we're going to do a GRP and we're going to try to create an online GRP, because that's the way to have a common denominator between online and offline.
How do we kind of take traditional media and digital media and bring them closer to the center? How do we think about an apples-to-apples comparison across screens? Because if we don't do that, we'll continue with digital being the 20% solution and television still running the upfront as they do for the past 60 years.
Well, there's one other element in this though, is that digital doesn't have a currency. I mean, that's, every buyer makes up, every agency, every account team makes up their own currency when it comes to digital. And we've seen a pretty, and I assume Randy would agree with this, as OCR and VCE have come in, it's been a bit of a tipping point. I mean, we have started to see a real change in the way that agencies deal with video. And even within the agency models, they're changing a little bit. In other words, the video teams are starting to be more aligned with TV teams. And for those of us that have been in agencies for a long time, it's usually been very siloed. It feels like, and David, you'd be able to speak better to this than I would, that the planning and buying efforts are starting to be more combined because you have a unified currency.
Yes.
It's a little bit of, be careful what you ask for, right? I mean, we've been saying all along, I was thinking about it, David, you and I, probably, I can Google this, we were probably on our first panel together in '97, I would guess, right? So people who ran ahead on the digital side and did all the things cool that digital could do, and now it is that moment where you're like, look, the two things we always talked about were, we need more standardization and we need more measurement, right? Well, now I think we have measurement. We don't have it across all screens. It's not perfect, but we have it for the first big piece of the pie, right, which is desktop. And so, you know, it's a great moment, because now I bet you know, and I are doing the same thing. We're spending half or more of our time talking to people who are coming at it from a traditional TV perspective. Not having those, we're dumbing down, apologies, you know, whatever, but we're dumbing down the crazy digital talk and making it simpler and easier to understand. And we're talking about GRPs. And yeah, that's a disservice, you know, but I look at it as, you know, the camel's nose under the tent. You know, let's get the, you know, let's use GRPs, let's go through the pain of demo comp guarantees, and let's get the money, you know, flowing, and then we can go back to saying, all right, now by the way, there is so much more that you can do. You know, now that you understand and you put money, you dedicate it to digital. Let's talk about that.
You know, one of the easiest digital metrics that hit the industry was the click-through rate. And, you know, that happened, I don't know, 10 plus years ago, right? And we just got so stuck in the click-through rate for forever. And, you know, we did it to ourselves. And I just worry that when we start to try and apply exposure-based metrics to something that is so much more superior, that the same thing is going to happen, that we're just going to get stuck, and then we're going to get marginalized, and we're going to get, yeah, I mean, we're going to be, I just worry the same thing is going to happen.
No, I think that's a very, very valid concern. I mean, the fact of the matter is, in TV, so in digital video, we have true, now we're all getting mired in this viewable impression world, right? So not only is it not an opportunity to see, it's an actual I saw, by demographic, by person, and individual impression. And in TV, we continue to have this average over 3 days based on 21,000 homes. So we've got a long way to go between TV and digital to get them closer together.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were one of the tests with Nielsen around their C3 measurement on desktop. And, you know, we have the actual server logs, we know the numbers, we know how things perform. They were off by an incredibly wide margin every time they did this test. And it gave us immediate pause, and we stopped any consideration of trying to do a C3 measurement of that same ad load across another platform, we stop that conversation right there, because they are off of this panel, and this panel does not match up with what's happening in reality.
So I'm going to ask a random question, just in this, maybe is to Randy. So if we're looking at moving money from the big bad television to online video, measurement is one area that we have to fix. In TV, there's different lengths of commercials you could buy, 15s, 30s, 60s, etc. In TV, a 15 is priced at half of a 30. In online video, you pay the same thing, no matter the length of the ad. So if you're running 15s as a marketer, a lot of 15s, you're gonna lose out as you think about moving money to online video. Why can't we do the same thing?
You're paying for a position, right? Pre-roll is the currency that we work in is pre-roll. Pre-roll is one spot in front of the content. So you can run a 30 or a 15, but
why isn't it priced accordingly?
We pay Dan one price, right? He's going to accept a different price for a shorter length or longer length. So
Dan, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked into the system. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the scale isn't there to next to TV. And I mean, you're going to see price depression as there's more and more consumption there. Because if you look at TV CPMs, they're lower than what we're getting online by a severe magnitude. I mean, we can have a much shorter ad load or much lighter ad load online for the same asset that's on air and monetize at a better rate. And that, as that scale gets there, there's going to be a tipping point, and I think you're going to see some depression, some price differentiation in terms of placement, to Randy's point, and also length of the ad.
So I have an interesting, because your point is like we should be paying less for 15, and all the data that we see actually shows 15s perform better than 30s. They're actually a more valuable ad set, believe it or not. Which calls into question was a 30-second online. Well, it just depends. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different layers on that. But I mean, completion certainly one of them, right? Which is a logical. But there are also impact studies that we've done and things like that. So it's interesting because it could call into question whether the 30-second spot on television is worth as much as a.
Yeah, all I'm suggesting is we're trying to preach fluidity, move money from one to another, because we've reached price parity in some cases. So last year, for the first time, all the big broadcast networks said you're going to pay the same thing whether you're on the big screen or the small screen. That was radical, right? That was a game changer. I think that will continue this year, but it's not all things are created equal, right? Because price is not the same, even though your CPM might be the same thing for a 30 as it is for a 30. If you're running 15s, it isn't. So that's the only point. Let's talk about something else, which I am a big fan of, the things that we get hyped up about and kind of fizzle out or actually do jump the shark or become real. Who, as they're watching television at night, does so with their tablet or smartphone next to them? Show of hands. Right, so you are representative of the marketplace, right? So depending on which study you believe, Google, we've done some of our own, we've done some with Yumi, 75 to 85% of US consumers with prime time are using another device at the same time. There's this other term, which I don't know if you've heard, I've heard it, I love it, I've said it to everyone that will listen to me, it's called limbic resonance. Has anyone heard of that? It's an innate human need to share experiences with others. So when you are experiencing something, the laugh track that was in the 1950s and 1960s television shows, which was just press play, you hear a whole bunch of people laughing, is to make you feel like you're enjoying that with a whole bunch of people at the same time. Social media has obviously thrown fuel on that fire. Social television applications into now Get Glue, Viggle, Pick Your Poison, are also feeding on that. While I'm watching a tentpole event, I want to talk about it and I want other people to talk back to me about it. Is this whole category hype, reality? Is it going away? Are you excited about it? What do you guys think?
There is a second screen, and it's Twitter. I mean, I'm not here to push Twitter's valuation any higher, but all these second screen apps where you got to download something else and you have to sync up with an experience, and it's a little insane, or inane, pick your word. There is value in terms of getting people to watch something simultaneously and to get them to talk about the experience and to raise awareness that a show is on. The marketing team at A&E had an incredible success with Duck Dynasty in terms of getting people to that set at that hour and watching it at that time and having an experience where they're communicating with the fans. That was all done through Twitter. That was the way that people were communicating, and the hashtags were all there, and the way that people would essentially become part of the culture or the fandom was within that environment. And to go out and create a secondary app that somehow tries to accumulate people is tough. I mean, you've heard the leader in the industry right now supposedly is Z-Box, and they made a lot of noise early on, but they haven't made any as of late, and I think that's an indication.
I mean, I remember I was, Z-Box is NBC, right?
Yes, and
yeah, I was with the CNBC rep a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Have you downloaded my Z-Box rep?" And I said, "No, I haven't." So he made me right there, download it, and I did. And for me, that social viewing happened at the first vice presidential debates when Palin and Biden were going at it, and I was on Facebook when I was watching it with all my friends, and that was like a really great moment for me because I got the whole social TV thing, we've been looking a lot at companies like Trender, which kind of evaluate which programs are more talked about, and one would think, and that if a show has more social conversations around it, that it's a better show. And I'm not convinced that that's the case. I do think that there's something there. I just don't know if it means that the show is more valuable.
That's
What
why
was the term you used?
Limbic resonance.
Yeah, I think I was born without that gene.
You couldn't care less if no one else is experiencing
But
it.
I would just say to you, I think unequivocally, it's absolutely a trend that's happening. I just think it's going to be more organic. And again, I keep harking back to the teenagers, but everything that my son does and his friends do is all social crowd-based stuff. And there's no reason not to believe that will start to permeate deeper and deeper into television. They certainly do it around YouTube videos. I mean, I'm sure you guys all follow the Harlem Shake phenomenon, but that has an enormous social component. Is that television? Well, no, it's not. What A&E does is television, but it's certainly, in my son's eyes, television. I think, maybe Z-Box and some of these others are just trying to shoehorn people into a certain experience that will happen more organically using Twitter or Facebook or some of these other things. But I think it's absolutely happening.
follow the money, right? As long as ABC or CBS or NBC thinks that they can add another percentage point to their CPM increase by showing that the conversation is happening in real time during the show, is showing that there's relevance to the show that's more important, and you're casting doubt on that. So maybe it won't play out, but as long as they can show it and use that to increase their pricing, then it has legs, I think. And then those guys lose interest.
I was reading this piece about the Harlem Shake, and what I thought was a really fascinating insight that I hadn't thought of was that, and it was this author's perspective on TV, and he was being a doomsayer, and what he was saying was, the Harlem Shake, I think it had well over 200 million views, around the world. It's probably even more by now. But what was really interesting was less about all of the advertising opportunities that those 200 million views created. It was the fact that people produced those videos and uploaded them, and the people produced them for free. And that was a really exciting experience for all those 200 million people.
I want to talk a little bit about technology and our crystal ball. So the question is, what role is technology playing in our business today? And let's look in our crystal ball over the next 3 years. What do we see coming down the pipe? Want to start that, Joe?
Sure. So it was really interesting. I can't wait to hear these guys why they think programmatic is overhyped and things like that. I think it probably. So first of all, let me just take a step back and say, I said this earlier. Fragmentation is a huge problem. I think television forever has been the most efficient media to transact. And digital, ironically, forever has been the least efficient. For those of us that have been on the agency side, managing digital has always been a harrowing experience, and now it's even worse. And guess what? Television is starting to look more and more like digital. So I think that you're gonna start to see, and maybe we shouldn't use the word programmatic because it scares everybody, and that's why Randy and Dan are like, having concerns around that, because it feels like I'm losing control and bots are moving around and doing all this. But if you think about every other industry, other than media, they've adopted. I mean, ERP and supply chain and, the airline industry, it uses, like, you go on and do all that. I mean, when's the last time anybody here called a travel agent? It certainly doesn't mean relationships go away, and it doesn't mean that there's not still, like, you just heard me, I'm a programmatic guy, say I think the new fronts are great. But I do think there needs to be an introspection about how we're going to effectively use technology, because agencies are going to fall apart. They just won't be able to manage operations.
That's very, very sad.
Would you not agree that the margin pressure that
That's
we
coming
get?
by you.
I think agencies are in dire need of starting to be much more lean forward,
No, I agree.
thinking
I
about
definitely agree.
how they use technology from an operation perspective. And so my crystal ball, 3-4 years from now, we will see agencies start to actually look and function differently than they have over the last 50, 60 years.
So I said, my word association program was problematic, right? So that's what you're at too. I say that, but I agree that there is an absolute place for programmatic and for efficiency in the marketplace. It's a perspective issue, really, in that we're the anti-programmatic video aggregator opportunity out there. We believe that I'm not trying to pitch what we do, but that the continuum of from TV to TV online through ABC.com to Hulu is about a march towards both scale, but also and knowing that the Sight Sound Motion is effective, but safety and comfort. And so being able to work one-to-one with a publishers of high quality content is the path forward. Programmatic to me has again a place. So it's a very crowded space, but there is issues around data, right? What is the data that's being used in order to place the ad? There is no MRC or over governing body, I don't believe, for data to understand whether the data is new or old, relevant or not. Cookie targeting, cookies are anybody has gone to, I forget who said it is, like check out your own profile based on the cookies that are on your machine. You realize that you're not who you think you are. And so,
But that's not a programmatic issue, though.
It's using. I mean,
You guys have
you're
the same issue.
You're using data to help make decisions.
But you
by
use
and
data,
large.
don't
We use data to understand what's happening, not to place the ad. We're using data. We're not doing cookie-based targeting or matches that way. So the question about, there's two things I thought I had to clarify. It's like I think what you guys just do is great. There's an absolute place for that. And the other is my kids are really good, even though they might swear at me once in a while. They are good kids. Technology-wise,
Yeah, we were worried about that.
I'm just afraid. There's a camera here.
On YouTube, your kids
They're
are
so
now
good. I'm
fasting
telling
right
you.
now.
They're good. There's a little true view right now.
Exactly.
That's good. So technology transforming the business, though, that'll look programmatic. Well, absolutely, agencies will be buying. There'll be fewer people, and they'll be pushing buttons to buy, and I think from us over time as well. But the transformation that we're focused on is mobile, right, and second screen, because we're not. There's a ton of work to be done there, and it's about the effectiveness of the advertising message. I do think we've solved the measurement part of it. How do we understand how to show in a systematic way what's effective and what's not?
I do hear folks outside, so I want to thank everyone for their time. I thought this was a good conversation. We have lots more to do, but thanks for participating.